Welcome to another video from Dr. Lock. What we're looking at is the Carbine digital door lock, heavy duty. It's a new product that actually just came out, and I'll read through some of the bits and pieces on the side here. The Carbine CDL7 digital is the next generation in lock. Here's why. The CDL7 allows you to have the flexibility of a digital lock with the security and ease of installation of a normal lever set. Conventionally allow access by simply pressing on the entry code. The security code is changeable from the back set of the digital pad by simply flicking the buttons. Ideal for storeroom staff, access doors, public doors. Models to suit 60, 70 and 127. So if you want 60, 70 or 127, you've got to state what latch you want. It's not an inter-adjustable latch. Easy to change user code by the rear of the keypad. Easy grip outer knob version with a larger lever one as well. Dual lever versions are BCA compliant, which I don't know what that is. Someone can leave that down in the comments, please. With wheel retrofit for common knobs and lever sets for common digital locks. Cycle tested in excess of 100,000 openings, suitable for door thickness, 32, 50 to 54 millimeter thickness of doors. Weather resistant, salt spray tested to 240 hours. Designed in Australia and made in Taiwan. Okay, so this is not one that's been made overseas. It's pretty much Carbine. They've designed everything from the top to the bottom. They only get it made in Taiwan. So let's have a look through and let's go through and see what we can see. Okay, so lever and knob variations. Okay, instructions. Everybody loves the instructions. So CDL7100 fitting template. So I can see already you've got your top hole, your bottom hole, and your 3 holes across. Very stock standard for digital code locks. You've got your 60mm back set, which is from the center of your hole to your edge of your door, or the 70mm back set, which is from the center of the hole to the edge of the door being over here. And of course, they say there's a 127mm latch option as well. So that would be from here and probably over here. So first things first is let's look at these rubbers and let's see what's going on with these. And you know what, that's spec for spec, so that's over the top. That is the size it is. Let me grab my ruler, because it did say refitting over the top of lever sets, and as we know with lever sets, they all take a certain size hole in the door, and that hole is 54 millimeters. So I can see this is going to 56, 57, 5, 6, 7, 57 mil you could cover. So you've got a couple of mil covering your hole, which is great. Let's just check if they've done it right this direction. 54, so 29, it's going to be covering your hole. So if you've got a hole of 54 mil in your door, this should cover it, even using these things here. Okay, so that's the quick look at the specs. We'll go over the instructions real quick as well. Look, if you want to read them, you can always go to the Carbine website and download them. I'm just picking them to bit. Picking out the good bits. Okay, so we've got our latch, which is run by just a square tailpiece bar, just like a 201 cylinder, so you can't see it. And that just fits in there, and it's got like 2 little teeth that allow it to drive. Here we have an A hole and a B hole. You can use whichever one suits, and that will be governed by the way that your latch is facing. So if you are facing his latch here, and if you're facing this direction, I guess you would be an A hole, and if you're facing this direction, you would be a B hole, and that would be the post that you screw on the back of the lock to go through there to give that lock some stabilization. Here we have the handing, so obviously you need to stick your Allen key in there, loosen the little hex screw that's down the back, remove this screw here, put it on the other side, and away you go. So here we go again. So A hole or B hole. And if you're using an A hole, which is here, which is for the latch facing towards the right, you put the screw there, and of course you reverse your handle, re-put the screw in, and away you go. The lock also comes with a couple of like standoff posts. They're just basically screw them in. They're the same as most other locks. Nothing really happening there. It comes with your striker plate, your screws, and your strike keeper. Everything stock standard there. Nothing really to talk about. Dead latching the latch here. It's all fairly straightforward. So this is what makes this lock different, these little flicky things. The olden days we had to actually pull off the back case of the lock, such as your Lockwood Digital. Here's one here, and we all know what it's like to change one of them. You actually had to remove the backing plate. There's like 20 little springs in there, and then you've got to pull out little happy and grumpy little discs, put them back in order up the right way, put all your springs back to reset combination. I mean, it's not terribly hard, but it is a bit of a hassle. This lock is generally going to be a lot quicker to do that. So your installation jig, nothing too flash. You just basically got to drill a few holes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 holes. Speed bore for your latch, mortise in your latch, and away you go. You're good to go. Alright, so let's get to it. We've gone over the instructions, nothing to report there. 2 rubber grommets, just like every other digital lock. Here is your faceplate. Okay, so let's just look at the lock. Let's just take it out of the box. I get more room. That goes there, that goes there. Take it all out. Ah, look at that. Clean bench again. Okay, so first of all we have our lock here. Clear button is now located at the top. We've got round domed, like almost ball bearing finished looking buttons, which is really cool. That's nice. A nice little bit of detail going around there with this liney thing. Weight wise, fairly chunky, sturdy, robust. Feels solid. Okay, let's give it a bit of so we're talking about 45 long, 175 high, protruding from the door. The actual keypad itself about 25. Taking into account the actual handle, I would be giving it, it's 55, but I'd be giving it 60. So if you had a screen door in front, give it a little bit of extra room. So the lock itself, the buttons, they're nice feeling. Now it's called a digital lock, but there's no electronics in it. It's purely a mechanical code lock. Okay, let's look at the back of it here. So this is what, you know, is kind of cool and funky. Well, one of the cool and funky things about this lock. To change combination, we just simply flick these. So you take it off the door with the top and the bottom screw, which is a standard installation, and you simply just flick these where you want them. Should be able to flick that across. Can I? Okay, let me try the clear button. Does that make it easier? No. Maybe it does. Remember, I haven't mucked around with this too much, so maybe you do have to depress the clear button. That worked with a lot of the other code locks. But I've flicked them over now into the red position, and if all things are equal, I should have changed this code to 1, 2, and I can turn my knob, checking that that was correct. Yep. 2, can I turn it the other way? Yes, I can. So I can rotate it both ways. On the back here, you can see it's got a circle there with 2 little triangles on either side. So this would go through. This is your tailpiece kind of spindle. And you can see here that they've marked it 32, 35, 45 and 50, which is the thickness of the door. So that's pretty cool. Now this plate can come off, and I wonder if there is adapters. Like with the Borg lock, there are adapters here. And here's one for a Borg 5000. And I wonder, you know, just if things are kind of close, because they certainly look kind of close. But yeah, hopefully Carbine has a whole range of their own adapters, because putting something like this on the front of a 001 would probably marry up quite nicely. That's one of the reasons the Borg locks, I guess, you know, have been out there or used so much, is because they've got adapters. So you can put it on a mortise lock, you can put it on a 002 or a 001. So that was a good kind of upgrade without using a digital battery-powered lock. Okay, so these are our standoff bolts, so they simply screw in there, they screw in there. Now this is what we were talking about before about A-hole and B-hole, and this, let's be an A-hole and put it on this side. Okay, so we're just going to screw that. So that's going to give the latch something to center on, and then we've come through with our latch, and you can see that that post lines up with that for extra strength. We're going to put our tailpiece right through the center. I hope that's in the right way, sorry. And we're just going to put that code in 1 and 2 and see if that latch works. And we're working. So fairly straightforward. Screws wise, let's look at the screws. Two really big long metal threaded screws and then two shorter ones. Obviously they are to attach the lock to the door from the back here. So you put your metal threaded screws here, depending on your door thickness. If it's thick, you use the long ones. If it's not, use the thinner ones. A thick door would be like 54 mil. You've got some, like, they look like stainless, but yeah, I'd be saying they're stainless. 4 screws there. So obviously there's 2 for the latch on this side, and 2 for the striker plate on this side. So fairly straightforward. Nothing really much to report. It does come with a sleeve, and I'm not too sure why, but it's got a sleeve. So some of the features that are different on this, actually before we go through, it's got a lever on the inside which makes it nice and easy for exiting, and to reverse hand, that was the other one we've got to talk about. It's basically swapping this screw to this side, which is fairly straightforward. I'm going to be lazy about it. I find this drill very slow. Okay, this one over here. Start the thread off, and in we go. Okay, that's in. So you would only do this depending on which side of the door or which direction your lock is handed on. If the latch is facing this way, it might be right. If it's facing that way and the handle's on the wrong way, then you do this. So we're just going to rehand it real quick. So I've backed the screw off now. I'm flipping it round and tightening it in. And the front, of course, you don't need to do that. And we're good to go. Okay, that's what it looks like with the rubber grommet behind it. So that looks fairly nice. And same would be for the front. So it just falls into that nice rubber grommet, like so. Okay, so that is the Carbine. Now let's look at the Lockwood Digital DX. Now we're not going to look at the whole lock, but we're going to talk about some differences between these two. Right, so for size-wise, you can see they're fairly straightforward. Lever here, knob-wise, you've got a bigger knob on the Carbine. The buttons, they feel fine. These ones, you really got to push them in a little bit more. You can push them in and they're not actually engaged because the length of those are huge, if you can see that. So there is a chance that you can push it in and it not engage, and then you apply pressure to the turning knob, and what that does is it jams up the mechanism inside, creates burrs on some of the very fine parts, and your lock starts to not be so reliable. So what they've done here with these nice little round buttons is, by the time your finger's on it and you push it, you know, it's not something you can kind of half do. Like you feel them kind of drop. When you touch these ball things, they just drop and they're pushed. So that's a little bit different there. Price-wise on these things here, this is twice the price, not just because it's brass, just because it's a Lockwood product, it's twice the price. So I've seen a few of these play up as well. One of the biggest drawbacks that I don't like about this particular Lockwood DX 530 digital is the actual latch it uses. They use this square drive latch, which is utterly overpriced and expensive. Not only that, extremely slow and sluggy, especially when the grease starts to build up and a bit of dirt starts to get in there. The other thing about this Lockwood Digital DX I don't like is to change combo on this. You've literally got to take it off the door with the 2 top and bottom screws. You've got to take that plate off. Okay, you take it off the door, top and bottom, then take the rubber grommet off, and then you've got 4 screws for a plate that sits on the back. So you take that off, and you've got a spring on each and every one of them. So, you know, you've got about 15 springs there. Lose one spring, that will never work again. Then you've got these little tiny parts, which you can kind of see about here. You can see that little part. See that? A little bit of metal. They've got to be put back in order with the cutout on the right side, and they're also domed on one side. So it'll be all domed up on this side and all domed down on this side. So when you want to change combo, you've got to tear it all apart, hold the C button, get your tweezers, pluck out the ones you do want, put back the ones you don't want, or so on and so forth, put it all back together, put the rubber boot back on, and then throw it back on the door. So what Carbine's done with this is they've made it a little bit more streamlined, and you basically just take this off as a one complete unit, just like that, and you start flicking these little things backwards and forwards. Now, I'm a bit concerned because I found them a little bit hard to push, and I'm not sure if I'm meant to be holding down the C button or if I just got to push them a little bit harder. That's something I'll have to read. I mean, they're moving either way. No, you just got to push them hard. So they're quite solid. So yeah, at least you're not going to accidentally move them. They're not going to move without you really applying a bit of force to them. Okay, this lock did come out with a 002 configuration too, and there's probably an adapter for a 3572 mortise lock. Knowing Lockwood, most likely they did. The Borg lock now, let's have a quick look at a Borg lock, because I have one of them handy here as well. Now this was one that was purchased for a job which we didn't end up going ahead with. This is a Borg 5000, and we're just going to look at this in comparison. So if you look at that and look at that, you know, height-wise, body-wise, we're about the same. If this one had a lever handle, would be about the same. This is the chunky model, and it's designed for heavy use and all the rest. So this is kind of apples for apples. Now with this, it's using the same type square drive. You've got your post in there just the same, the A hole and the B hole just the same as this one had as well. The design's very similar. Here we have all of our red code indicated by the red ones, and all the ones that are not our code indicated by the blue ones, and you've got that C button down the bottom. This particular lock here has an F function, and that's one thing I don't see on this one. There is no passage mode on it. So you know, just to be fair, I'm just going to call it as it is. So you can put in your code, and then you pull down the handle, you hold the F function, and now when your customers come in and out for the day, oh, that didn't work, the F should actually stay. Oh, you know what, it's not going to work because the disc hasn't been put in, but it can be put in. So you would normally pull down the lever, hold the F function, which would keep that combination going, and what that would mean is you can just use the handle continuously throughout the day. So it does have that function, but the disc isn't installed. Weight wise, it's a little bit more chunky than the other one. Let's look at okay, so the rubber boots. We can compare rubber boots with rubber boots. Pretty much spec for spec. You know, they're the same. Not much really in them. Let's have a look at this rubber boot on top of this one and see. Okay, yeah, it is a different footprint there. So they are different sort of spacings. Now, this plate here is very interesting to me, and I didn't get any kind of instructions as to what this plate is, but I want to know, is this plate going to allow us, if I take this off, will it allow us to actually marry it up with a 002? Because I have a 002 plate right here, and we can have a quick look at that. Knowing Carbine, there's probably a plate anyway that they make which will marry up with a 002. I mean, I wasn't terribly impressed with the Borg with the 002. I found it a bit sluggy sometimes and hard to pull the latch all the way back on a 002 Lockwood, but you know, it's worked many a time. Okay, so what goes where? So I just got to put that over the top there just to see if anything marries up. Okay, no, it doesn't marry up with the Borg stuff, but I guarantee you there's going to be another plate. If they make a plate like this, they'll make another plate to make the adapter plates. So yeah, not interchangeable. I mean, you might get away with interchanging a couple of spindles or making your own spindles, but generally speaking, it looks like you've got to stick with the same brand of lock if you're going to be adapting it to different types of locks. So that is the Carbine, and I can never remember these names. Why don't they give them funky names so we can remember it? This is the Carbine CDL7, and apart from that one little F function, which it doesn't have, which is a bit of a shame, they're pretty much spec for spec, and we don't know how they're going to actually handle, you know, as far as the Borg has stood up to some gates and outdoor weather activity and things like that. And I'm not too sure what the specs are as far as what this was tested to, because if this, you know, if this was tested to a certain limit, this one here we do have the limit, which has been like 24 hours tested in salt spray and all this sort of stuff. So we don't really know which is which as far as longevity. but I'd be saying most likely the Carbine should definitely stand up to a bit of abuse, especially on gates or close to marinas and all. The Borg actually has a marine grade one too, so you know, it would be nice to see the specs on the Borg marine grade and compare them against the specs on the Carbine, but unfortunately we don't have that. But for an office setup or a gate or a commercial entry and exit using, you know, buttons and codes, I mean, it's certainly going to kind of do the job. Definitely going to do the job. It's going to be easy when you've got to rekey it anyway, and the feel of it and the look of it's nice. One other thing about this Borg as well is these buttons too. They've got the same as the Lockwood ones. When you drop them, you get a fairly firm click, but you do have to push it halfway to China to engage it. You know, it's not a lot, but if you were to just do these like little bump things, like a lot of people do in the office, they go up and they like do fairy little pushes, fairy push. My code's not working, and really they're not engaging the numbers. Now your code will work. But if you do little fairy like this, as if you think it's like some sort of mobile phone, then it's not going to work. As with this one here, there's resistance. You could do the same there. You could just pat them and they're not going to go in, but you can definitely feel them when they give. Well, they both kind of give you that give feeling once they're pushed. As far as manipulation and things like that, it's a completely new mechanism for all the people out there who like to manipulate locks. The Lockwood Digital can be manipulated, and that's a very similar type system on the Borg as well. So being this new mechanism that they've put in, I'd really have to pull it apart to see if any of the old tricks would actually work on manipulating this, and that's something I'm probably going to do in the next coming couple of days, because if you're locked out, you're locked out. One little factor as well here that I did notice here that I'm going to just quickly squeeze in before I go is you see this little shieldy thing? That's there for a reason. And I saw it on YouTube. Somebody was defeating one of these locks by getting like a fine piece of metal shaped with a little notch out of it and going in there and grabbing the sidebar and grabbing the tailpiece and doing that. So they've put that shield there, which is really good to prevent that. And as you see the Borg, no shield. So that's interesting as well. So they've actually put that in as a design thing. So they knew about that way to attack it, and yeah, they've put something there to prevent it. Okay, that's my rant on the Carbine digital door lock. It's a new product that's out there. Leave your comments down in the description what you think of it. Is it any good? Is it no good? Any of the features you like, any of the features you don't like. It's always good if you've used one yet. How you think they compare against the Borg or the digital Lockwood. It's not all about money. I mean, if it was, Lockwood would be the most expensive, Borg the next one, then Carbine underneath that. So they're all relatively strong products used in the commercial setting or any setting that you want to lock without battery power, access button lock without battery power. Okay, thanks for watching.